but I think we're at 15 on the call this morning, or sorry, 13. So I wanted to just formally welcome everybody to our weekly Wednesday digital marketing webinar. And this is just wanted to make note these webinars are being brought to you by Winged Whale, which is a digital marketing and augmented reality company in our downtown. And this whole program is being funded through the Digital Main Street Digital Service Squad grant that we got. And we've got Jason, Anthony, Quinn here. And I have to say, I've really been enjoying all of these marketing sessions. So I'm sad to say that this is the last webinar, but all of these have been extremely helpful. And yeah, we're going to miss you guys next Wednesday. So I'm going to hand it off to Jason to take the lead here with regards to the last focus session. We did program management last week, and we're doing email marketing today.
Yeah. So welcome everybody. There's a couple of names on here that I'm not familiar with, so I'm not sure where you found us. Ash, I think this is the first time I recognize your name, or Abdul. So if you want to just throw in the chat where you found us, that'd be great. Along with that, yeah, this is the last webinar that we're going to be doing, but you can find all the webinars on the BIA website under the members section, so you can go back and you can review the other 6 webinars, and then this one will come up in a couple of days. There's lots of information online there as well. We have the resource guide that everybody can download, which has a lot of the step-by-step directions to the programs and how to use them, and a lot of detailed information. So kind of a great resource there to get some information. And then there's like a list of vendors in there, as well as kind of some prominent web resources for you as well. So feel free to check that out. Otherwise, like Susie said, this is the email marketing. I'll throw it over to Quinn and Anthony, and we'll get started.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. So while we get started, I think Quinn's going to just share a screen, and we'll just get started with the webinar 7, the final one in regards to email marketing service platform. So as Jason said, this is the last webinar out of our kind of little webinar series. You know, we're sad to go, but we're glad that we're able to, you know, have one last little rundown to help you guys out with your small business and really streamline your business initiatives here. So if you go to, let's let that get started, and we'll be on our way. Are there any questions about email marketing before we start? How's everyone's experience in regards to that? Has anyone attempted to try it before, or we'd love to know your thoughts about it.
Well, I'll jump in. Oh, sorry, I was going to say we do emails quite a bit. So the BIA sends out an email every Wednesday to our membership, and we also send out a consumer e-news every Friday. And so we're constantly sending out emails to both the business members and the general public at large.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, let's see.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, and like I said, it's a really good idea. Just kind of have that kind of outlet where you're able to reach a mass number of people that quickly, and have that kind of information spread across all of your digital outlets, including email marketing specifically. So yeah, that's a great point that you've brought up there, Susie. Quinn, you want me to share my screen instead?
I've started sharing mine. Is it showing for everyone, or?
It's showing now. It was Anthony before.
Yeah, I think it's just while I talk, it'll be showing. So yeah, as long as it's showing, just chime in if it seems to get away from that. I'll try to pop over to the chat over here. So if any questions come up, just so you don't have to wait them out and forget them, feel free to type them into there, and then we can get to them afterwards. Or if it applies right at the moment, then I'll jump over and be able to see that. Cool. So as we said, today we're covering email marketing, mainly with Mailchimp. So Mailchimp is, let's get through this real quick. What we'll be covering is basic navigation, steps to launching an email campaign, setting up your audience, which is very important, creating your email, preview and testing your email before sending it, and then monitoring its performance. And then we'll briefly touch on automated email campaigns. That's where you have automatic triggers that are sending your emails out for you. So that's something that can be easily incorporated with things like newsletters and the like. So just for a first question, I want to answer how small businesses can use email marketing. You can use it to connect with really any of your customers, let them know of special deals or seasonal promotions coming up, really just keeping in touch, keeping them engaged. I've dealt with clients in the past, especially last summer, when a lot of small businesses needed to reach out to their existing customer base and say, hey, we're still open, or, we're not open right now, or here are updated health code policies during COVID, that sort of thing, right? It was very helpful to them in reaching those customers and not having to rely on just slapping a sign on their door, waiting for their customers to come around and then be disappointed and have to leave and then go book an appointment, right? It's much more direct than using social media. It's more, you can personalize it and sort of really act as though you're talking individually to each of your customers, right? And you can do this in bulk, which is a great efficient means to do so, right? Who sees the emails? That's really any customer who decides to opt into email marketing. So that's through your website or from your store. They're engaged enough or regular enough to want to hear about these new specials. So that's something important to keep in mind. Which segments of your customers are going to be the ones that want to receive these communications, right? If I'm a customer that comes into your store and it's my first time there, odds are I'm not going to be too eager to give you my email address. But if I'm coming in every week or every other week or even every month, right, it's something where it's a repeat purchase sort of business, then that's great, because it means that they are someone that will benefit from being engaged and will be personally motivated for that, right? And then from there, we're just diving into which email marketing strategy is right for your business. It's sort of tough to name different strategies for email marketing, but there's ones where you're really just incorporating different sub strategies, right? So for example, if I have a small business and I sell vacuums, for example, right? That's a pretty, that product is something where, people aren't coming in every week to buy a new vacuum, but they might be coming in to buy bags, right? So you have to sort of pick and choose how often to email those customers and what you want to be sending their way. You want to choose a strategy that fits with the level of information your customers or subscribers want, right? So you don't want to be that business that, I'm sure everyone's had their inbox full of emails, like promotional emails from businesses that they don't even remember visiting, right? So you sort of want to stay away from that while still providing the adequate amount of information to your customers. So from there, let's quickly dive into Mailchimp. So Mailchimp's a great platform. It's just a website that you go on to, just mailchimp.com. It's a very versatile platform, and in that you can see here they offer like a free, essential, standard, and premium level accounts, right? So those are based off of how many contacts you have in your audience, as well as different versatility for things like team collaboration, better previewing or A/B testing of your emails. So some small features are what you're getting in these prices, right? But as we're talking about free marketing tools today, just the free plan is totally sufficient. It allows you one audience that you can segment as you please. You have a 2,000 contact maximum, which can be limiting for some people, but stepping up to $10 a month or something is going to completely change that depending on how many contacts you have. So I urge everyone, when they do sign up for emailing, take a look at that, sort of expand the drop down to see exactly what these differences are. They also have templates available, so you're not really just building an email from scratch. It used to be common practice that promotional emails from businesses like this would be built in HTML, and Mailchimp was one of the first to realize that not everyone is willing to learn to code just to send an email out to their customers, right? So this is something where it's just drag and drop and you're good to go. So we are going to jump over to a demo real quick just to cover navigation of Mailchimp. So when you log into Mailchimp, everyone can see this screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. When you log into Mailchimp here, it's going to take you to your dashboard. It's going to say, welcome back. This is just a sort of test account that I have going on. You can see what your most recent campaigns were, as well as a little bit of the performance, like the click and open rate, and then as well as your audience change, right? So I only have one audience here, which means that anything reflected here is going to be representative of my entire audience. So here you see that, I've added one contact this week. So this is great if you do have something automated that is adding contacts, which is something we'll cover very shortly here. But it's great to see, maybe you have contacts coming in from your website where people are signing up to be a part of your blog communications or your newsletter, right? This is great because instead of, manually going through the list that it's generating, you just see the general breakdown here. You can also see how many people are actually leaving your audience as well, as they choose to unsubscribe. So just continuing on navigation here, I'll start by just highlighting down in the bottom left corner. You can see usually just like a profile icon, and from there that's where you can access things like notifications, your profile account, etc. Right? This basically is just basic navigation to your profile settings, mainly to look at what type of plan you're on through Mailchimp. And then starting from the top here, as I said, your dashboard is just going to be this little logo here. We have the create button, audience, campaigns, automations, and then it gets into website building, content studio, and integrations. Integrations is something we'll touch on a little bit today, as well as automations. Mailchimp recently introduced their website builder and content studio, so that's something that we won't be covering today. It's not part of really the email marketing aspect of Mailchimp, but it's definitely worth taking a look into on YouTube or just online. So let's start with your audience tab. From here, you'll see another menu come out. Seems like a lot at first, but really it's just taking quick steps to get to different places that things like this drop down can, right? So from the audience dashboard, you can get insights depending on how many emails you're sending and everything, right? It'll show things like that audience growth or how many unsubscribes you have, how many of those contacts have been cleaned, and just general statistics, right? I don't have that right now just because I don't have really any subscribers in my audience, but again, we'll be covering that soon. Sign-up forms are pretty important. In this is where you're going to find certain forms that you can link in your emails, right? All of Mailchimp's emails require you to have, all emails in general, because of the Canadian anti-spam laws, otherwise known as CASL, require you to provide your business address, unsubscribe options, and so on. Now, this is where you can customize those. We're not going to dive too deep into that today because Mailchimp's going to automatically generate them for you anyways. But this is a great place to sort of browse around and see how you can add certain aspects to your campaigns, right? Under here, we've got tags, which is a really cool feature that Mailchimp has. It's really just which of my contacts have a certain common attribute, right? So say I have 10 people in my audience, right? Now I want to segment them, and one segment is 5 people and the other is the other 5 people. And that could just be based on product. It could be based on really whatever you want. So when you create a tag, you can create that and it will and apply it to certain contacts. That way you can segment those guys out easier, which brings us into segments, right? This is where you're going to see your different saved segments that are composed of members of your audience. And then you get into Mailchimp also has survey integrations and survey tools, just general preferences, and an inbox from sort of replies to your emails that you're sending out, as opposed to them coming into your actual inbox. So from there, this part's quite a bit more simple. This is just your campaigns tab. It's going to show you all of the campaigns that you've launched, so any email that you've launched, and then including automated emails, and then show you some brief stats here. This is a great place to organize your campaigns as well. So you can create folders based off of the month that you're in or the campaign that you're running, if that campaign has multiple emails involved. And then these are all just filtering options here. They also have a really nice calendar view where you can just go in and see a calendar view of the emails that you've sent. This is also the place, we'll be covering this later, but this is also the place that you're going to go to be able to view reports and view those the data that's on your that's been happening on your campaign. We won't just cover email templates just yet, just because that's going to be more of the part where we're actually creating an email. And automations we'll cover a bit later as well, but all you need to know right now is this is how you navigate over to automations, is by clicking that tab. Okay, so I'm going to jump back over the presentation here. All right, so this is the most important part of email marketing. So before we even jump into the design, the creative, any of that, what we're going to do is talk about building your audience. Now, this is important for a lot of reasons, mainly because you have to be focused very much on the way that you're collecting this information, making sure that it's up to the Canadian anti-spam laws, and also knowing what to do with that data in terms of bringing it into Mailchimp, right? So you can look at certain methods of adding contacts to your audience by, say a manual method, right? So this might be something where you run a shop and your customers come in, and as they make a purchase, you quickly ask for their email address, right? That's totally fine. You can record it in a spreadsheet, which I recommend, because that is actually something we'll be covering in just a sec, where we can bring those contacts right into Mailchimp from a CSV file. So that's something that we can just do through a spreadsheet. Invoices is another great one. Allows you to record the name, the email address, and purchase information of the customer. On something like that, you might want to include that a sort of checkbox or consent notice about receiving promotional emails, right? And remember, this isn't just for promotional emails, it's for non-promotional as well. So if it pertains to their order itself, or just general health codes around the store, something like that, then this is a great place to be able to gather information to be able to send that back out, right? It's really important to get those transaction records in this set of data. So if I have one contact, I should be recording. The standard is their email address, their first name, their last name, as well as the date they are making a purchase. Now, the date they're making a purchase is really important in regards to Castle. There's a law in Canada here where you can't email a customer if 2 years have passed since your last business dealings. So if a customer comes into your store and buys something, gives you consent to email them based off of that purchase, then you cannot email them past the 2-year mark after that if they have not made another transaction since. So that's something that Castle really cracks down on, people are aware of, and something to be very careful of. You'll be able to automatically set it up so that contacts are taken out of your audience as you have them added, so that you don't have to go in every day and see, oh, what's 2 years or something, right? You can also segment them out, which is nice. You can also another method for building your audience is through your point of sale system. So if you're using something integrated with Shopify or integrated with a specific CRM, then that's great, because it means that you can do this all digitally, and you can find integrations to be able to automatically have anyone that's making a purchase be added to your Mailchimp audience. This and a website sign up sort of thing sometimes require a bit more technical ability. So if you have someone that's set up your POS system for you, or you have a webmaster, then that would be the person to contact regarding an integration like this, just since we won't be covering it today because it gets quite technical. So for a website sign up, as I said, can be a little bit tricky, but it's tricky to set up. But it's great for things like lead generation, and being able to have a bit of a wider breadth of your audience building rather than just customers coming into your store, right? Overall, I'd say you want to focus on recording dates, contact information, and purchase information. So for dates, as I said before, we want to send to customers who made a transaction around a year ago, for example, right? So say you run a seasonal based store, you're selling seasonal products, and that's perfect because you want to see, oh, okay, they made a transaction a year ago or 6 months ago today. Let's segment those people out and make sure that we're sending them an email so that we can sort of trigger them to come in and make another purchase, right? If your product or service makes sense with say a 6-month period of repeat purchases. Contact information is super important just for organization in general, but also for personalization, right? Once we get into actually creating the emails, what we can do is make it so that even though we're sending an email to hundreds or even thousands of people, we can essentially say, hey, you know what? Even though this is to a bunch of people, it's still to this person, right? So they see their own name on the to field, they see their own name in the email itself, and that goes a long way in this area. And then purchase information makes a lot of sense too, since you'll want to include types of purchases or products they've purchased. That could be very useful in segmenting certain groups of your audience, your customer base. So let's jump back over to a demo where we're going to be setting up an audience. So as I said before, this is your audience dashboard. Pretty simple to navigate. You're just going to go to view contacts, and it's going to give you a spreadsheet-like kind of list view here, right? Here we're going to cover a few things. We're going to cover what exactly is included in these fields, as well as how to add contacts. So you see a couple different test emails I have here. The first one is one that will be automatically added based off of your account sign up, right? So you'll see that one's pretty much always subscribed. You can add tags to it to not include it, but it's never a bad idea to send yourself the campaigns that you're actually sending out, just in case a very last minute mistake is noticed, and you can go in and send a follow-up email to your customers and say, oh, you know what, there was a mistake. So here you see certain fields. As I mentioned before, your email address is what whole profile is based off of. First name and last name are nice for personalization. You can even record address, phone number, birthday, the tags that I mentioned. Under the email marketing field, there are 3 statuses. So there's subscribed, cleaned, and unsubscribed. So just to define these for you, subscribe basically means that they are an active email address. They, when an email is being sent to them, the email client isn't sending back, like doing a return to sender, basically. This address doesn't exist, so we're going to send it back. And you'll see that's what's happened with this email here, as it's been cleaned, right? So if you send an email to someone who has provided an email address, but it's slightly wrong and actually doesn't exist as an email address, then it'll come back and it'll clean that for you. So you kind of have the option from there to do what you please with this address. You can send a follow-up one, because sometimes this might happen if their inbox is entirely full, which is rare nowadays, but still happens surprisingly. It will allow you to decide whether or not you want to send something back to them and say, hey, just checking, seeing if this is or isn't an email before you decide to get rid of them. You can also see the source here, usually through an admin ad. The only other time that this is a little bit different or relevant is if you do have an automated sign up system involved. Then you can differentiate between ones that you have added manually through here or ones that have been added by your integration, right? Now, contact rating is really cool. It's based off of how engaged that contact is with the emails that you send. So if they open all of them, that's cool. That might be worth 2 stars. But if they open them and then scroll a bit, 3 stars, right? They're a little bit engaged. 4 stars is more like going through, spending some time on the email and clicking every once in a while. And 5 stars would be every email they are going into, they're clicking links, they're curious, they're fully engaged with that email. Day added, that can be supplemented for their last purchase date. So that's something that you can use, but generally it's just a guiding data point, right? It also has last change dates, which are just if you go in and decide to change up these contacts information. So let's quickly cover adding contacts. So you see we have this bar at the top here. In my audience, right back before we were in our overview section, which will give us all the data, all the KPIs on our audience, right? This makes a lot more sense when we have more than one subscribed contact, right? But you'll see from our last view, we had 1 subscribed, 1 cleaned. So it shows us that breakdown here. If these contacts open the email, then it shows your open rate here, which is how many people open the email divided by the amount of people who have that the email's been sent to, as well as average click rate, which is just the amount of people who have clicked over the amount of people that it's been sent to. It also show you a brief breakdown of audience growth. So again, if you have an automated system, this makes a lot of sense because you might not be aware of when subscribers are added. So that's a great tool to be able to have one quick look at if your audience is growing or if it's in a declining phase. You can also see certain campaign performance here. This tends to not be as helpful because going into specific campaigns is what's going to really help you. But overall, this data can tell you a lot about optimizing your content that you're sending out or your communications to keep your audience engaged, right? So if we jump back over to manage contacts here, let's quickly actually cover this drop down. So like the sidebar here, you have tags and segments. You can also create groups, which is just sort of an organization tool. You can unsubscribe addresses, so sort of like a bulk way to do so. These are all really just more complicated ways than just clicking these guys here and selecting certain actions. So let's get into adding contacts. So there's 2 methods here. The first is to manually add a subscriber. So I won't follow this process in full, but you'll see here that it gives me the fields necessary: email address, first name, last name, address information, phone number, birthday, and then an area to create tags. And then it always makes you check this thing off here, which is just that that person gave you permission to email them. So this is a great way to quickly do a manual addition. But if you, like I suggested before, recording in a spreadsheet is a really good idea. If you decide to take that method, then you can choose import contacts. Now from here, you can upload a file that's a CSV. So let's take a quick example here. If I just take this guy, we've got 2 new contacts. We've got turtles are cool. His name's Turtle Guy, and no, they aren't, and that's Mean Guy. So we want to add these guys to our audience. So what we're going to do, this is just in Google Sheets here, but you can do the same method through Excel. You just need to go into File and download this. You're going to want to download it as a comma-separated values document. So basically, this just simplifies it as much as possible. We're going to download that. Choose upload file. You also have the option to copy and paste from a spreadsheet. I find that uploading a file tends to have the least mistakes associated with it, whereas copy and paste can sometimes have a couple hiccups, especially if you're looking at like a spreadsheet that's hundreds of contacts, right? So I continue to upload. Just drag and drop that. Nope. Oop. I'm just going to bring it in from my computer. There it is. Now it's going to bring you to the organize phase. So these subscribers are definitely going to be subscribed off the bat. If they've consented, you can read more about it right here. And if you have any contacts that are in a spreadsheet like this that happen to overlap based off of email address with your existing subscribers, you can click this box here. So it means that you're just going to update any existing contacts. So basically, if I already had Turtle Guy in my audience, but by a different email, it's going to add a new audience member. But if it's Turtle Guy with the same email address, but he now has a new date of purchase, then that's something where it's going to update that date of purchase for me. Now we're going to continue on to tagging. So this is something where, here's some examples, right? You can do staff ones, members. So if you have a membership program, or just want to simply separate whether they're a customer or they were a lead, you can totally skip this step. Tags aren't necessarily required for you to complete this, but I highly recommend putting some thought into that in terms of how you want to segment your campaigns in the future. So this part is the main part I wanted to cover. So this is where you are going to be matching your data to what you have in the in your audience breakdown currently, right? So you see I have email address, first, last name, and your date of purchase, but you'll see first, last, and date of purchase, they aren't automatically included. So it recognizes these as email addresses, but it's not going to automatically recognize these as first, last name, and date of purchase. So you're going to have to manually attribute that over. So for example, here I've clicked the first name header there, and these are all the options that you have for adding data to each profile, basically. It's pretty much what we've already covered, but the nice thing is you have this option to create a new field. So for first name, let's just select first name. For last name, same thing, we're just going to select last name. But for date of purchase, since that's not already a field included in our audience, we're going to have to create a new one. So once we go into that, we're going to say date of purchase, and you select the data type. So here it's going to be a date value. I'll confirm, and that's no longer highlighted. And once I finalize the import, I can complete it. Just gives me a brief breakdown here. And it says I was successful. So we're going to go back into contacts. And there we go. We've got 2 new subscribers, and we've got their date of purchase information now too. Now, this was just a column that it added because I created a new field. So you can do that as you please. You can create really any field that you want. I do believe that Mailchimp ends up limiting you on how many fields overall you can have. So just sort of be choosy with which ones you decide to add and which ones you decide not to. But overall, adding contacts, pretty easy. So let's quickly touch on profile overviews. As you might have noticed, I'm sort of mentioning these in passing and referring to them as profiles. So these to you aren't necessarily just a list of email addresses, but they're actually a collection of profiles. So if I want to go into my profile here, I can get a total look at what KPIs that this profile has contributed, right? So what my open rate is and what my click rate is, right? So if you're really focused on one customer, or you're curious why one customer hasn't been opening things, you can go into this and sort of view those details on a bit of a larger scale, right? There's also a great area for you to edit these profiles. You can make notes, just kind of personal notes. They're not going to be able to see them, and you can see their activity, right? So they were sent the email, but they didn't necessarily open it, or they were sent the email, opened it, and they clicked in it, right? It'll show that all in the activity feed here. Another point to cover is actions up here. This is where you're going to be able to unsubscribe, send them a message, or export them from Mailchimp. So this will be pretty useful in doing specific profile editing. Again, you can also add tags here. You can edit profile information, right? So you'll notice, since I didn't have my phone number, address listed, I can go in here and quickly add that as well. So just jumping back over to a bit of regulation in terms of date of purchase, I've provided a link here. If you go to fightspam.gc.ca, this is where you're going to be able to find all Castle information, which is very, very important. I can't stress that enough. It's overlooked a lot of the time, and there can be big fines involved, right? Don't really let that intimidate you and deter you from practicing email marketing. This website's great. It's Government of Canada. It gives you very basic breakdowns from a consumer perspective, but also from a business owner perspective on what you can send, when you can send it, all that sort of stuff, and make sure that you're adhering to Castle laws. Another big part of that is consent to send, right? It covers that in this link as well, but that's something that you want to be mindful of, just because for website signups and such, for example, you want to make sure that your customers know that they're going to be receiving promotional information. And if they don't want to, you need to provide an option for them not to do so. All right. So we're going to move on from audiences now. Are there any questions about audiences? Let's see. Can I add their email address found on their respective website? Contact. Can I still select contact? Give me permission. Yeah, if you go out and just find their email and add them to your list, that would be against the law. It would be considered spam in that case. So you want to stay away from doing that. You want to make sure they're either giving you their email, or if they're giving it to you digitally, you need to make sure that there's a box there asking for their consent to send them promotional material, right? Do I need to keep updating data purchase in case the customer keeps coming back for new purchases, so as to be in 2-year period? Yes, this is a great option. It doesn't mean you need to update the entire profile every time. As I said, every time you add an email address, you can sort of, if a customer comes up to your shop and is making a purchase, you can ask them if they've shared their email before. If they say yes, then that's great. You can ask for it again. If they say they're not sure, you can just ask for it again. I know that this might be a bit of a hassle asking over and over again, which is why I definitely recommend the integration with your point of sale system. That's going to be your best way to track that. If not, you need to sort of keep on top of it a bit more. I've dealt with clients in the past that do keep up with it manually. Trust me, it's pretty strenuous, but it's definitely an option for if you're interested in email marketing enough and engaged in it enough that it's what your customers expect, right? It's sort of unfortunate just because it provides a lot of motivation either not to do email marketing or to break the law, the 2-year law. But overall, there are workarounds so that you can continue recording their information to be able to have that data up to date. Any other questions for audiences? Yeah, it depends on the context. So the question is, what if the emails you send aren't promotional? They are more about keeping in touch. Do the laws still apply to the same extent? That really depends on the nature of the email. You got to get into it a bit more, right? So if it's a newsletter, for example, even if a newsletter is about keeping in touch, that's still promotional, right? It's not necessarily, hey, here's a sale, or there's a sale on this product, or buy this, which is conventionally considered promotional. But even if it's, a general newsletter, it's considered promotional, just in terms of branding your business, right? So same laws are going to apply. The only time it doesn't apply is if it's about the actual business dealing itself. So if 2 years later you have some sort of invoice issue or something like that, you probably won't be doing it through Mailchimp. But if you were, it is totally legal to be emailing them on that sort of personalized level where you simply need to contact them outside of being promotional. Hope that helps. All right, I'll leave it open for just a sec in case anyone's typing. All right, so now we're going to move on to launching an email campaign. So we'll go through a demo again here, but just to cover it, we're going to go through the Create tab that I showed you before. We're going to cover who this is being sent to, which is why we covered audience first. Again, very important. Your from line, the subject that you're going to include, like the subject line that people are going to see first, super important. We're going to cover that through a platform called CoSchedule, which is really cool. The content itself, how to create a good looking email. And we're going to use this website here, reallygoodemails.com, to give us a bit of inspiration. And then we're going to cover some of the footer content, legal. We're going to do some preview and testing. And then finally, we're going to send or run through scheduling. All right, so we're going to start just by, as I said, navigating over to this Create bit over here. So from here, they have a few different options. Obviously, we're not going to cover all of these today, but Mailchimp has vastly been expanding their product lineup to be everything from creating a social post, an ad, a survey, landing page. Really, they're trying to turn into something that's both an email client and a creative studio, similar to Canva. But a lot of the added features within these come with the paid subscription. So we're for now just going to stick to an email. From there, it's going to ask us if we want regular, automated, or plain text. I'm going to go ahead and say you never want plain text. It's if you're sending a plain text email, it's probably going to be something you're sending personally anyways through whatever your email client is, through Gmail or something. It's just going to be text. It doesn't make a ton of sense to do that through Mailchimp, through their plain text version. Instead, you can just do a regular one, and we can still do text through that, but provide better branding within it. So, and then we have the automated example, and we're going to be covering that later. So campaign name, let's just call it test 1 for now. We're going to click begin. So this is the main thing that you're going to see when you're creating your email. It's a pretty brief breakdown of what I said before, the to, from, subject, and then we're going to get into the content. So the content's going to be the most, you're going to be spending most of your time doing this, but let's cover these guys first. So in the to field, if I go to edit recipients, you see my single audience there. If I had more through the paid versions of Mailchimp, then they would simply be listed there, showing their count as well. So you see I have 3 subscribed contacts there, and we have our segmenting drop down over here. So it's going to default to all subscribers and audience. Just as easily, they have pre-built segments. I don't always trust these. I just like to sort of, even though I know what they're doing in the background, like active subscribers will be, subscribers that open emails that are engaged enough to be worth sending to. Inactive subscribers are sort of a segment of people who aren't necessarily engaged or new subscribers. But instead, let's just go into group or new segment. And from there, it's going to give us sort of an if-then field, right? So we've got a couple options here. We can create a new segment, or we can paste emails. So if you have a specific list based off of a segment that you've captured, you can always just paste those in there. They have to be in your audience though. So if you're pasting emails here, they have to be ones that are in this audience. And remember, it's just email addresses you're pasting here. And you also have the option to include or exclude those ones. Now under new segment, this is kind of a cool aspect to segmenting because it makes it nice and simple, where a lot of the time dealing with spreadsheets, it's not as simple. So really you're just going to fill all these out. Contacts match any of the following conditions or all of the following conditions. So the difference between those is, say I want email client is, just for an example, right? So let's say we want to send to people within this audience who were added to the audience after my last campaign was sent. Here it was on February 28th. So that's just an example. You can also set it to a specific date, right? You can change it from is after, is before, etc. But here, if I want to select all of the following conditions, we're looking at both they added and their email client is iPhone. But if I'm to select any, it would be everyone whose email client is an iPhone and everyone whose they added is after the last campaign was sent, regardless of whether they're on the iPhone or not, right? You can, again, these are going to be based off of anything that you add as well. There was date of purchase that I added manually that we saw before. So that's something where you can adhere to that 2-year rule by using segments rather than cleaning those contacts out from your audience every time. So let's just say day added is after last campaign was sent. The next step here is personalize the to field. This is really cool. So if you have a first and last name associated with the profiles, you can basically say that when they receive the email, they're going to see that it was to them rather than just an email being sent to everybody. And these guys here might look a bit strange to you. They're called merge tags. Mailchimp uses them to identify certain things in a profile, right? So a first name, a last name, both the first name and last name. There's also merge tags for really anything here that you can see, right? So say I want to send an email to 100 people. They all live throughout the GTA. But I want to include what they're, at some point in the email, I want to call out the product that they last purchased from me. if I've added that within their subscriber data, then I can specifically call that out and personalize the email further. Another great way to do that is the city they're located in, or their first and last name, right? I'm sure everyone's seen emails from places that they've never provided their first and last name to, that come back and they say, oh, hey, Quinn, or whatever it might be, right? So from there, we're just going to save that. And you'll see that it pops up saying that there's 2 recipients in that. I can just click that. This little window will come up and show me the list of those ones. So you see the 2 that we've added today. Makes sense that they're there since they're the only ones that I have added since the 28th. And if I want to go back in and edit that, I can just simply click that and I'm back in. All right, now from is important as well. In this, we want to provide any branding, right? So if I want this to be coming from me, have like my name, that makes sense, but a lot of the time you'll want it to be from your business address or your business name. I just have that there as an example. And your email address is always going to be your primary business email. You really don't want to use anything else. Just in terms of branding, it makes a lot of sense, and in terms of trust, right? If I see that the name is Quinn, but then I see that the email address is this, I'm gonna kind of raise an eyebrow at that and sort of go, oh, that's a bit strange. That doesn't seem like a real email address, and maybe I'll block them from sending things to me. A lot of email clients like Gmail or Yahoo or whatever you prefer to use also have firewalls for this kind of thing. So if they do see a suspicious email address or one that the recipient has never received an email from before, it's going to flag it and sort of say, hey, maybe be a bit suspicious about this. It might not be totally trusted. So you really just want to use real email addresses, ones associated with your business, if possible, ones that you've sent emails to those customers with before. And that way you're avoiding all barriers to your customer's inbox. All right, now subject line is going to be a bit of fun here. So depending on what we want to be communicating, we want to include that here. So we've got 2 fields. We've got our subject and our preview text. And I'm sure everyone here is familiar enough with emails to know that there's a subject line, and then before you go into the email, you can see a little bit of the email's content a lot of the time. Now, if that email consists of header text or different text throughout the design of the email, it might not show up properly. I'm sure everyone's seen it where the preview text might be img-attach 1, 2, 3, and it's showing the name of the first attachment in the email rather than the actual what's happening in the email, right? So what's an example I can use? Let's say free samples, try one today, right? So if I take this, I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to go over to this link that I had provided before. Now, this is just one tool CoSchedule provides. It's free, but basically what it allows you to do is type your subject line in and click score my subject line. Oh no, did they put a sign up wall to it? Maybe not. This. Okay, there we go. So it looks like you have to sign up now. Basically, this is going to give you an overview of every word in your subject line. So this is really cool because first it's going to show you your score. So this score is a 60. That's not horrible. It's solid. As they say right here, it highlights words that you should that generally decrease or increase opens. So I purposely included that capital free because that's at a point where it's so overused that people are skeptical about it, right? If something includes all caps free. But things like try, right? This is an action word that entices people to engage with your content, right? So it breaks that down right here. And you can actually see word banks that you can use that will increase opens, right? So instead of free, saying % off, 24-hour giveaway, that sort of thing, contest, there's tons here that you can choose from. It's pretty easy to get a bit of writer's block when it comes to subject lines, but using a tool like this really helps. And it doesn't only help you come up with something, but it also helps you come up with something that's going to be effective. You can also see words that decrease opens. This is just as important. You'll see that a lot of these are ones that you've seen in a lot of spam emails you've probably received in the past. I know I have, and those are ones that either email clients are going to automatically flag, or the customer that you're emailing to is just going to see and sort of brush off as something that could be spam, or isn't real and personal, right? Now, we're not going to change anything just yet, but let's try adding an emoji to it. So you see there, I've added a heart, and not a ton, but my score has gone up. So any emoji that you include is going to actually increase your score. Emails with emojis are more likely to be opened. Another big factor here is the length of your subject line, right? So if I say free samples, try one today for free only today, right? We're gonna be getting a bit longer, and our score is going to go down. Right now, it's down to 54. Probably not the greatest, right? And it's also highlighted that for free only are all decreasing open words, right? So it's also going to look at the case of your sentence that you've written here. You basically want title case on everything. It's pretty straightforward. You just want it to look and feel nice, rather than being those looking like a sentence in your subject line. Having numbers present also increases your subject line score, and then it basically just gives you a breakdown here of your character count, word count, and emoji count. Definitely helps to take a look at all of these and see where you can improve, right? And then it's also going to show you nice previews of how it's going to look, right? So you'll see that this one, since it's a bit long, it'll show up nicely at the top there, but it'll probably be cut off over here. So that length of free samples, try one today, is actually perfect, because on mobile and on desktop, in desktop previews, it's going to show up in full, right? You don't want your customers to be missing out on the main part of your message through your subject line. So we can close out of that for now. We're just going to keep it as is, but keep that in mind. Mailchimp also does a sort of scoring thing here, but it's obviously not as in-depth as the co-schedule one. And for preview text, we're just going to write something like, our store is celebrating the new year with free samples, right? Something short and sweet that gets the point across. That is basically just think of your subject line and extending it to provide a bit more context. And we're going to save that, and you'll see that those 3 checkboxes are now done. So all we've got left is the content itself. So this is where we get into some fun. So let's go into design email. And it's going to open up this builder. So as I mentioned before, Mailchimp provides a good amount of templates, which is really nice because it allows you to not have to build off of build from scratch. Sometimes it's nice to do that depending on how specific you want everything to be, but odds are it's going to be covered by one of these at least, right? So you've got ones that are sort of built for different things. They say tell a story or follow up or educate, right? You'll see that this one, upgrade to use, follow up, upgrade to use. So these ones are sort of locked from the free account, but ones like this aren't, and these basic ones aren't. Now, as nice as these ones look, these basic ones are actually going to be your best friend, in my opinion. They just give you a bit more versatility, and they're not as hard structured as these guys. So we'll just go into, let's go into this guy here. Just give it a sec to load up. All right, great. So very basic off the bat, right? And this is what I mean by starting from scratch. This is a great example because what we're going to do is we're going to look at these different elements and just drag them over and see what we need in our email. So I don't need this text in here. Instead of going in and removing it all, we see that we've got a lot of space to add information here. So let's just kind of go through the works here. We've got a text box, which basically allows you to add this, and it's going to bring up a pretty basic text editor here. Now, I won't go through absolutely everything here. It's very much like how Word operates, but you can do everything from centering your text, you know, bolding it or changing the style of it. So if you want it to be a header one, and you know, we want to change the font a bit, you know, let's go with, oh, make sure to highlight it first. You can change the font. As I mentioned before, we've got merge tag options here, right? So say I want my header to be so now if my contact's name is Quinn, now when they receive this, they're going to see hi Quinn, right? So it's just a nice filler. You can add, as I said before, really any of the information that you have under your subscribers profile information. And a note that I'll make on that actually too that I forgot to touch on before is that there are defaults to this as well. So if you don't have a first name for your contact, don't worry, they're not going to see this horrible, confusing mess. They're going to see whatever you set as the default. I think the default is customer or client or something like that, but it's something that you can dig into Mailchimp to see what your default merge tags are. From this as well, you can also link text. So if I want to insert a link here, whether that's to a website, an email, or file, and I believe you can do, it doesn't provide you an option, but a good trick here, if you want to link a phone number, is just you do tell, and then you enter in the phone number, and it lets you link a phone number. So if someone's viewing this from their mobile or from their computer, they can just make a call right just from clicking on that. These advanced options more so pertain to if you're looking at the back end of this email in terms of the HTML, CSS behind it. So nothing that you really need to worry about. Sometimes the title attributes help just in tracking, but we won't be really covering that today. It's a pretty rare use case. So let's leave that as is for now and check out some of these other blocks. So similar to text box, I have box text, which basically just means that instead of it just being white behind there, it's going to be in a box shape. I've got dividers, so if I want to say hi first name and then provide a divider and then come into a different section here, I can do so. Let's get rid of that for now. That's more of just an aesthetic thing, the divider. Just as easily, I can put a text box right underneath it there. And some of the other ones a bit more self-explanatory. An image is just going to be just an image group up to, I think, 5 images you can do, might be 6. When we add that in, it's going to start you off with 2, add more. Yeah, so it's 5 that you can add in total. So that's just sort of like a group of photos. That's great for something like a newsletter, but can be a bit much if you're looking at sending your customers an email. So let's keep that there. An image card is just an image with text underneath that is just as easily achievable by, putting a text box underneath your images like so. So I don't totally agree with that one. Same with image and text, or actually image card is a bit more like putting box text underneath an image, and image plus text is more like putting what I've done here, just text underneath an image, right? We've got different links, so share links or social follows. You'll see the social follows down here. When you go into those, all you need to do is edit them to go to your Twitter account, Facebook account, whatever you please. There's tons of different options here as well. So you can, well, they've added a lot in the past while as well. So you can really link to wherever you want with the proper branding behind it. For these guys as well, you can also change, their size, their style, if you don't want them to be as noticeable or just smaller at the bottom, right? Buttons are also important. That's going to be where your main call to action is, right? So that's everything from buy now to learn more or subscribe or whatever you wish it to be. And it's going to be something that you can just link to your website or whatever destination you want them to get to. Under style here, it's pretty nice to be able to work around with these buttons because you want your button to, from a design aspect, you kind of want it to match how your logo looks. So I've got a logo in mind that we're going to be using that we're going to do that with. So let's round it off. I'm always a fan of that. You can change the color of the text inside. Let's change the font to match what we were using before, as well as the size of the text itself, which will increase the button size. And then the padding is just the area around that. So if I change that to 16, you'll see that the button shrinks back down a little bit and decreases the space between the text and the outside of the button. There's not many settings for buttons, but it just has to do with alignment. Let's save and close that for now. And we've got a bit of stuff coming along here. So, I've got my header. You know what? Let's actually, let's finish looking at these. So from there, we've got our footer, which is automatically included already. This is really just so that it automatically includes everything you need to include. So, the copyright of, it automatically puts in the current year, puts in your company name that you have associated with your Mailchimp account. And some other important information regarding the copyright of the email. It provides your mailing address, which is required in all email marketing, and then options to update preferences or unsubscribe from the list. I'm sure everyone here has done that before, where it's brought them to a company's website or something. A lot of the time, that's not necessarily the actual company website, but it's actually something created through a client like Mailchimp to look like the company's website. So really, your customers will just be going into an anonymous page that's run by Mailchimp to unsubscribe from your audience. And then you'll see at the bottom here, it says if rewards, HTML rewards, and if that's basically just saying that since we're on the free version of Mailchimp, there's always going to be a Mailchimp sort of tag at the bottom, just because that's sort of how they leverage the free account. So we can delete that right now. Let's go into a bit more of this editing. So you'll see that I have a few different options here. If I just click into this, it'll allow me to edit it, but more directly, this is the edit button right here. Another helpful one is to duplicate. So this will allow you to, if I want another header down here, I can have it match that without having to go through the same process, as well as one you've seen me use before is just to delete the block in its entirety. All right, and then we've got, code snippets, which are great. Things like everyone's seen emails that have like countdown timers until a sale ends, things like that. You can find tools out there that provide HTML code snippets for you to be able to include in your emails, as well as, and then there's embedded videos as well. This is just so that you can, if you have a YouTube video or something, you can bring that over into this, just like an image, and people can click it and watch it. So let's get into a bit more of the customization here real quick. So for the logo section, I want to, it's not giving me anything right now. So I want to replace this. Now this opens up this menu here. I've just got some filler images in here, but I'll show you how to upload one. So as long as you have the image stored on your computer, you can choose upload. And which ones do I have here? Let's pretend we're a pharmacy for a second. Oh, that didn't come out as a PNG. That's all right. So it's not exactly how you'll want your logo to look, but you'll want a PNG, which means that there's no background, especially not a checkered background like this, in your logo. So you can add that in. You can also edit images in this. So there's a few things to keep in mind here, actually. So first off is your image dimensions. This one works out well because it's not too big. If I were to go into this and let's say choose this nice image of a Porsche, it's going to give me this box right here. So it says this image is so big that it might cause slow load times or get clipped in people's inboxes. Aim for 800 to 1200 pixels wide, right? And that gives you a solution to fix it, right? So this is an awesome message because it basically means that, hey, you don't want to send an email with a bunch of beautiful pictures of cars to your customers, and then they click into that email and it turns out that they can't even see that image because they're on slow internet, or they can't even see your whole email because their computer is just being so strained just trying to load this very HD image, right? So an easy way to fix that is just click on Let's Fix It, which brings up one of my favorite parts of Mailchimp, and that's the fact that they have an image editor built in. So it's no Photoshop or anything, but it's great for just changing the the aspect ratio if you want to, or changing the dimensions, right? So here you see that it automatically switched to 1200 pixels wide for me. So all I need to do is click save, give it a sec, and we'll see right there that it's updated the dimensions and our error message has gone away, right? So from there, I can change the actual display size of this. Keep in mind what mobile and different email clients will look like. We'll cover that in a sec in our preview section, but just keep that in mind. You don't want anything to be, this big where someone's bringing this up on their phone and their entire screen is filled with this image, and that's the first thing they're seeing rather than the actual message that you want them to see, right? Very important to keep that in mind. So you don't want those images to be too big. You can also link images as well. So if you want someone to click on an image, or you have an image that says click here, you can add the web address in there most of the time. You can also make an email address and telephone as I showed you before. Under style, we can just round the corners if we want to, different styling just to match the rest of the email or to match our brand, as well as any sort of border and colors associated with that border. For now, we'll stick to none. That's usually the common practice. Now, one thing that's that I find beneficial here is to change the margins to edge. You'll see that it takes away that white buffer zone around the image, which allows it to just take up a bit less space. There's less space between this image and the text, and it sort of just helps clean it up a little bit and keep it more in your hands. And then you have an option here for Retina image support. You can constrain the dimensions by 50% for high-res displays. So it's an okay option. It's nothing essential really for including photos. I've never found any real benefit from it. all right, so say, we have our logo or some sort of imagery there, but one thing I'm sort of noticing is that the spacing right here is different than the spacing above it, right? There's kind of a weird spacing going on. So one really cool trick to fix this is actually going to be bringing in another divider. This is going to look not so great off the start, but let's bear with me here. And instead of 18 pixels of padding, let's switch to 5 and 5. So we have 10 total. It'll be 12 with a 2 pixel divider size. And we can just make it white to match the background. And you'll see that that's added a nice space there, right? So there I've selected the divider area, and this is the text area. So just a nice trick that I've liked to use in the past. All right, so I've gone through adding photos in. Let's quickly add a couple here. Just by uploading a couple more. Select multiple at once. Everything's in. Just click insert. Insert. Now we've lucked out here. These images are pretty much the same size, or the same proportions. So we don't really need to do anything here. But one thing you want to stay away from is having, one photo in landscape while the other's in portrait, right? It's going to look like a jigsaw puzzle. You want to try to keep everything the same sort of size. And if your photos aren't the same size, no worries. You can just use the edit tool that I showed you before to be able to change those dimensions, crop it up and make it look sort of prettier like this, a bit more geometric. So last thing I'll cover here is just overall editing. Right now it looks kind of boring with just white on white. If I go into style and into my page settings, you'll see the background settings here. So that's going to be this area in the background there. You can add borders and everything to it, right? I go into this, you'll see there's a border at the top now. Not always the best looking, but a nice option if it ever comes up. There can be an email border. So if I want to outline it with blue, and there you go. You see that's appeared around the side. And then one cool thing here is that for any headings or body text that you have in your document, you can sort of edit it in a consolidated fashion through this. It's nice if you need to do bulk edits real quick, but personally, I prefer to just go into each text block or block that I need to be changing and change it there. That usually gives you a bit better fine tuning. You can also change everything from the pre-header, which is this area here where it says view this email in your browser. Just change what that looks like, the background around it or any sort of padding around it, as well as the text. The header, which is where I've got the picture of the Porsche. If I want to change the background to match that blue, I can do so right there, as well as any text that I decide to include in that block. The body is going to be this sort of main area right here. I can change anything there as well, mainly background and text. Then once I get into the footer, we're talking the same thing. So basically here down is the footer right now. You can kind of tell because of the difference in colors, just changing text, borders, and the like. Mobile styles and referral, like the referral badge is what I was saying about Mailchimp having this at the bottom because you're on the free account. So usually this one looks a bit better than having this big black bar at the bottom, which they automatically select. So, and then mobile styles are just for things that you kind of want to change in terms of text size in mobile styles, but we'll kind of talk more about that in just a sec. So say this is your email, this is what you're going to be sending out. You've got it linked, you've got the photos in, you've got the text in. Now you want to see if it works. You want to make sure it works. You want to make sure customers are seeing what you're seeing here. Because remember, this isn't Gmail, this isn't Apple Mail. You're not looking at the email right now. You're looking at the edited. You're basically looking at an HTML5 preview of what you've just created. So you're going to go up to this preview tab right up at the top right here and click on enter preview mode. This brings this guy up. So this is sort of what the email generally looks like on a desktop. So if someone's on their computer, whether that's through Gmail or on Apple Mail or something like that, this is generally what they'll see. You'll see that it's filled in test first name just because I'm running a preview, and that's the merge tag. If I switch over to mobile, I can see what mine's going to look like. You'll notice the images have changed a bit. They've changed their alignment to match mobile. It does a pretty good job of this. And another point in mobile that I said I'd come back to is that you don't want that header image to be too big, right? So since I made it a bit smaller, you'll see that my first glance at this email isn't just all image, it's image plus a bit of the first message that you want your customers to see to entice them to keep scrolling. Now, one option that isn't included in the free account, unfortunately, is inbox previews. So if you do decide to upgrade your account, this is actually a really good tool to use. It allows you to basically go through a list and say like you have 25 inbox preview tokens each month, which means that you can preview 25 times through certain inboxes. So if you find that your audience is only ever viewing emails through Gmail, right? And this is sort of vague. It doesn't really suffice for what you want your customers. It doesn't suffice for what you want to know that your customers see, right? So you would go into this and choose Gmail from that list. You can even choose like an iPhone 7 versus how it's going to look on an iPhone 7 Plus or an iPhone X, right? So if you notice your customers are viewing it through mobile a lot of the time, it's a great way to check out and see exactly what it's going to look like on each device, as opposed to being sort of a vague representation like this. Another thing I'll just quickly cover is this, the footer area. So you'll see that's the rewards badge that I was talking about before. And then this is going to be all of your footer, your required footer text. So this is all within Castle as well. So that if you do end up sending something accidentally to a customer, they always have the, or even if it's on purpose and they decide to unsubscribe, you always need to have the unsubscribe option and the update your preferences option, and as well as your mailing address. And then it just helps to have any copyright information, so that nobody's, using your email of photos that you've licensed and, your brand name or whatever it might be, right? It automatically has this add us to your address book button. I believe you can get rid of that and it'll be all right. So right now we're just going to click on this X up here to exit out of the preview mode. And this brings us back to the editor. I'll quickly mention this guy over here. It's comments. So if you are collaborating with people, they can reply in a way that comments will show up here. Kind of keeps it as one stop rather than emailing it off and then having to jump back over to your email browser just to see what people have to say about it. This is just switching your templates and stuff up here where it says template, help and give feedback, pretty self-explanatory. So from there, we're just going to click continue.
Hey, Quinn, I know we're running a bit of time. Are you going to go over the performance as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, so this is, I'm just finishing this up here. Basically, the only step left is to send. Placeholder text, it is saying that I still have placeholder text. Give me 1 second here. What's our time limit here?
We should wrap up soon because this was till 10, if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
How much more time do you need?
It's not a lot. We can sort of omit the automation section. I can briefly touch on that just in terms of where you can apply it. But the main thing is, the main points that we wanted to cover today is just being able to send or schedule an email as well as manage your audience.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
So from here, you also have the option to send a test email. This is a good opportunity to be able to send the email to yourself to really see what it looks like, or send it to your collaborators. It's just a great option to use. I highly recommend doing that. And basically now it's ready to send. You'll see all checkboxes are checked and we're good to go, right? So I have the option to either schedule or send this. If I click send, it's going to send right away. If I click schedule, we've got some delivery options here. So you'll see that you can schedule emails based on time zone if you upgrade your account. But what we're going to do is, oh, maybe the free version doesn't include this anymore. Anyways, so if you upgrade, you can schedule your emails based on date, optimizing your send time, or sending at a specific time, and also doing batch delivery. So if you know that your website's not going to be able to handle 2,000 people potentially coming to your website at once, you can send it in 2 batches, say 5 or 10 minutes apart, so that you're not getting an influx of people visiting your site right away. But anyways, you can just click send and you're good to go. I'm going to jump back over to all campaigns here. And from here is where you're going to be able to view reports. So I have one that I've sent before. I just sent it to myself, so we didn't really get any opens or clicks. But if I go into view report, we can see the number of recipients, breakdowns of the general information of the email, as well as any benchmarking, depending on, you can select your industry. That sort of helps, but I would recommend doing, background research instead of relying solely on Mailchimp for that. And then a breakdown of how many people opened, how many people clicked, how many people bounced, how many unsubscribed. And through each of those, you can view lists of each one. So if you say, go to activity here, I can say, hey, show me a list of who this email was sent to. And it's going to bring up this list. Show me a list of people who opened or didn't open. Nobody opened it, so didn't open, for example, and it's going to show me a list there. So that's a great way to be able to dive into that and then export it as a CSV, either for your records or to be able to compile a segment that you're going to resend to, right? So if you end up sending an email and you see a certain amount of people, opened it, but they didn't click it, then you can go into that and sort of send them another email, like a follow-up email saying, hey, we saw that you were interested enough to open the last email, but you didn't click. Maybe this time it'll entice you to click. So maybe you send them one a week later or something like that. All right, so that's pretty much it for monitoring. And I'll quickly just cover, I know we're tight on time here, I'll cover automations. When I went to create here before and I went into email, I had the option to create an automated campaign. So this is based off of triggers, based off of your audience. So you can email subscribers when they're tagged with a certain tag. You can do that manually or as you add them. You can welcome new subscribers. You can say happy birthday, share blog updates. So you can have a bunch of different types of triggers that allow you to send an email automatically without having to ever click a send button, really. You just sort of say, hey, yep, you can send as you please based off of these triggers, and it will send to them. And then you can view that information just as you can view all of this KPI data. And that pretty much wraps it up. Jump back over, see if there were any questions from anyone, but I think Anthony wanted to cover some of the resources here.
Yeah, so just to wrap it up real quick, Quinn, if you just go back to that deck, really, as our contract, if the deck is wrapping up to a close, please make sure to download that improvement guide that is on the BIA website under members. That has all the details. So if you go on to the next slide, it has a detailed walkthrough of Mailchimp on page 32. So if you miss anything in the webinar, or if you want some more hands-on step-by-step experience, we have that as well. On the next slide as well, if you have any if you want any further benefits, you can check out this link here. And if you want to see a walkthrough of how to actually use it, we do a walkthrough in webinars 3 and 4, I believe. Aside from that, are there any other questions for Mailchimp for Quinn, myself, or Jason?
I actually just wanted to chime in real quick, going back
Yeah.
to the resources. As I mentioned in the last webinar that I was a part of with you guys, that the toolkit's a great resource, but also keep in mind that YouTube is a great place to, just search a quick video on how to do something specific in Mailchimp. And your competitors and peers are really good to go to as well. I unfortunately didn't have the time to cover the website reallygoodemails.com today, but if you're looking to, have a nice creative style to your emails, I highly recommend going to that and getting a bit of inspiration off of what similar companies to or similar businesses to yours have sent out and what messages they're communicating.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, I just wanted to say thank you guys so much. This was a very, very helpful webinar. And I did want to say, oh, am I frozen? Can see my, I did want to say, having worked in retail myself, I wanted to share, I used to work for a clothing store for many moons in downtown Oakville, and we relied on our email database. Like that was our bread and butter for those loyal clients that you have. It's so important to make sure you're communicating to your clients on a regular basis and letting them know what you're doing in your business, what you're selling, and photography. It really, I'm just saying this out of personal, real experience. We used to do an email, and it wasn't fancy. It was just new product lines that were coming in all the time, and those clients were in the store right after that email was sent out. So wanted to just share that. I know there's some retailers on today's call, and also just wanted to say thank you to the whole Winged Whale team. We're going to miss these marketing webinars. I know, Jason, you and I have talked of additional opportunities for downtown Brampton, and I know we'll be exploring more. So it's not a goodbye, but it's just a formal thank you for all the hard work you guys have done with this grant through Digital Main Street. And I want to congratulate you all on all the hard work. We got 51 businesses transformational grant this year, which is amazing. And we've also really helped with all this education. That playbook is going to be a great tool that many businesses will be able to use whenever they need it. So thank you. It's on our website. So if anybody does not have that digital overview or handbook, please let myself, Tegan, or Alex know, and we'd be happy to get that link out to you off of our website. And again, if you have any more questions, don't be shy. Feel free to reach out to Winged Whale and their team, or the BIA, and we're here to help you guys. So thanks again. I know today's session was a little bit longer, but it's a lot of information, and email marketing is really, really important today, especially with COVID and all these lockdowns and the restrictions we have on small business right now. So I highly recommend you spend some time doing some more work on it, because it does pay off. So thanks again, guys.